Now we are all set for the panel discussion, and I would request our panelists to please join because we have time constraints. We are running late, and we have been patiently waiting for speakers to finish. So we would request Professor Bharat Lohani, Professor Kamath, uh, Dr. Rajaram Iyer, Dr. Nilesh Badwe, Mr. Gaurav Pilania, and Mr. Anuj Awasthi to join us here. Yeah, so first we would introduce the panel. So Professor Bharat Lohani is a professor at the Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Kanpur, and his research mainly focuses on high resolution remote sensing, laser scanning, and photogrammetry. He co-founded GeoNo India Private Limited at IIT Kanpur, which provides LIDAR-based solutions to government and industry in India. And Professor Lohani develops innovative solutions for LIDAR data capture, processing, and solution development. So welcome, Professor Lohani. Professor Kamath is the head of the department Aerospace Engineering at IIT Kanpur with extensive research experience across research, industry, and academia. He leads innovative initiatives such as aircraft healthware system. As head of the Department of Aerospace Engineering, a board member of IIT Kanpur Research and Technology Park Foundation, Professor Kamath continues to drive advancement in aerospace technologies and education. So welcome, Professor Kamath. To just now we had heard Dr. Nilesh Badwe. So very shortly again, for some of you who have joined now, Dr. Nilesh Badwe is an assistant professor in the Department of Material Science and Engineering at IIT Kanpur, and before joining IIT Kanpur, he worked at Intel Corporation USA as a materials technologist and staff packaging R&D engineer. And he is driving a semiconductor research initiative in a consortium mode, just now here explained. So welcome, Dr. Nilesh Badwe. We heard Dr. Rajaram Iyer this morning session, and he's executive vice president at Laurus Labs Limited, associated mainly with building cell and gene therapy capabilities to ensure access to emerging markets. He has partnered with leading educational institutes like IIT Bombay, IIT Kanpur to get novel technologies to the market, and with huge experience. Welcome, Dr. Rajaram Iyer, to this panel. And Mr. Gaurav Pilania, he is a member of CII and active in Kanpur zone for the development of industrial ecosystem in Kanpur. He has more than 15 years of industrial experience ranging from defense, rail, telecom, mobility. And Mr. Gaurav is working as a director of Hans Energy Systems Private Limited. So welcome, Gaurav. And just now we had heard Anuj. So we will straight away go to this panel discussion topic, that how Technopark can help further industry academia collaboration. And because we have some hard stop for Mr. Rajaram Iyer, with the permission of all panelists, I would request the first panelist, I would request Dr. Rajaram Iyer to have his thoughts on this role of Technopark in furthering industry academia collaboration.
So first of all, thank you for inviting me and also giving us space in Technopark to actually put up our CGMP facility. So thank you for that. I'll actually share our experience, right? Why did we use Technopark? And that is a great example to say what Technoparks can do in order to bring novel therapies to market. When we came to IIT Kanpur, we were talking to BSBE department. There were a lot of innovative work they had done, but they were all very, very basic. What we would have expected is the work which was done plus plus plus. for us to really then take it forward. Is that plus 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 in our scope of what we do currently? Maybe not. But then the question is, who will do that plus plus plus, right? And that is where Technopark came in handy, because what was done in the lab was predominantly a preclinical model. For us to do our toxicity studies, we wanted a larger vector quantity. Lab couldn't support because lab is not CGMP, and even if you do a CGMP, they don't have that equipment. So you need a facility where you can actually get those smaller equipments which are larger for lab but lesser for commercial, but helps you do toxicity, helps you do clinical trials before an industry can see a attractive asset for commercialization. There were lot of work which was required, and I think that is when we set up this Technopark and we said, let this be the interim pilot facility which a helps us prove the whatever has been done in lab has some relevance. You do toxicity, you move that forward to various stages of development, and before you actually start human trials. So that was one, and also serves as a starting point for commercialization, because you really don't want to put up massive commercial facilities without having a good proof of concept on whatever you have done in lab, right? And especially when you are serving patients, that's very important. So that is when the Technopark concept came in very handily, where you can actually have a pilot facility where you take the innovation from the lab, do process improvisation, do scale up, do a lot of other studies which you have to do, and then take it to the next level. Initial thinking was, let's set up a manufacturing facility in Hyderabad, and if we would have done at a much higher scale. But we were not sure whether this innovation really works. I mean, in animal it does, but what's going to be the translation? And I think that is the power of places like Technopark. They actually provide the in between platform. It's like a good bridge, where this is the pharma example. I'm sure there are a lot of other examples in other industries where this then becomes a good bridge for you to solve and take the innovation from the lab, bring it to these interim kind of facilities before you actually migrate. And also see, the other question, to be honest, which we had was, will this product be super commercially successful? And if it is not, then there is no point setting up those large manufacturing facilities. So you having a pilot here, understanding those nuances, understanding processes, understanding little bit of market, and then you migrate to a much larger facility. I think that's, from a strategic standpoint, this helps you or take the step further from the basic research, come to Technopark, and then go to a much larger facility. I think that's where concepts like Technopark we liked. And I remember when we were discussing initially, we thought of hiring half a floor, and then we moved to full floor, and then there was discussion to take the fourth floor also. So yeah, we have come a long way there. Yeah, so those are my initial thoughts, sir.
I think this works actually. So yeah, so I would next go to Professor Bharat Lohani. He has huge experience with working with industries as well as academic experience. So his thoughts on how he sees that technoparks can further industry academia collaboration.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to talk in this panel. And in fact, I will say I don't have any industrial experience, because many of the people over here, they come from the industry. Even my colleagues also, like Prof. Amrain, Nilesh, they were working in the industry, then they joined IIT Kanpur. My journey is rather different. I joined IIT Kanpur, and I didn't join industry. I started the industry. I started my own company, and then the company is doing okay. Is providing a lot of good products, services to the government and the private, and adding value. So my journey in the industry was as an entrepreneur. I went through that entire process, and in that process, I could learn a lot about the industry. Now, being from IIT Kanpur, a professor here, being the academic, and also having the experience of the industry. So I have some ideas that how, and the question is very specific actually. And since morning, I'm sure that we are talking about why industry, academia, collaboration. This answer is already there. The need is already there. We need not to discuss about that. Rather, we are talking about a platform, that is the technology park, and how this platform can be useful in order to further this collaboration. So I see technology park as a catalyst, because I see it rather as a shadi.com, because they are willing partners on both sides, and you need a panditji in between. You need the shadi.com to bring them together. So I will put that analogy here. And you always need that mediator, someone who can discuss, who can talk in the language of both the parties. Why so? Because here in academia, we academics, we the professors here, our understanding of the industry is very less. I'm telling you the fact. We do research, we work in the cutting edge technology areas, we take the development also up to prototype. But that jump from prototype to the product, we can never do it, because that is not our training. Rather, what we do, once it is at the level of prototype, even before that, we publish the paper, we switch our area, we start moving in the other domain. Because the journey from prototype to product is a very long, very grueling journey, and that can't be done without industry. So the role of technology park is really very important, where they can bring these two parties together. So I think what technology parks should do is develop the system where they can engage both these parties. This is not, just officially in an administrative manner engage them. Rather, they should engage them proactively, and they should facilitate this dialogue. And we have seen very successful cases of industry academia interaction. There were also the cases which didn't give the right result. Again, because we could not proceed after some steps. So I think the technology park has to play that kind of role. And there are some very good international models about industry academia collaboration. So our technology park over here should learn about those models. So try to implement those models in Indian context, how this can be done. One more thing that I will say, when this industry academia collaboration, it happens, and we start, working together, industry has some expectations. At the same time, the academia also has some expectations. So the role of the technology park is to normalize that expectation. Because when the industry, they come, their expectations are very different, because the kind of the environment they work in, the kind of the timelines with which they work in, the kind of the pressure of generating the revenue with which they work in, it is very different than the kind of the environment which is here in the academia. So I think technology park should play a very proactive role again in this, so that it can normalize the expectations of both the parties. Whenever the industry comes over here, it must know that academia, they have not only a single project to work in where they are working with the industry. Rather, we have many other jobs to do. For example, if I engage my undergraduate student in a research, I know how much time he can give. I know when he will become engaged in his end sem, mid sem, quiz, and all that. So this kind of disconnect in the industry and in academia. So I think technology park, because they understand both sides, so they should try to normalize this, so that whenever we are working together, our expectations are not unrealistic. That is what I think. Yeah. Thank you. Just my initial thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. So now request Professor Kamath to say his initial thoughts.
So thank you, Technopark team, for inviting me here, and good afternoon to everybody here. So I have some, of course, this was part of, I think all of you might be aware, I was associated with Technopark I have been associated for the last 3 years. And we have been making pitches to the industry in terms of why they need Technopark. So I'm going to just repeat that pitch in some sense. See, there are two aspects to this. One is, a more tactical kind of a advantage that industry could have. Actually, it's not just purely industry. I think, like one of gentlemen there was also pointing out, it works both ways. It is, I think, and we have also seen that the academia benefits equally in terms of industry. But coming to the specific points, I think it's kind of, I mean, people have been saying it from morning, and it's been even Anuj also nicely pointed it out from their own experience, even Dr. Iyer. So one is certainly the knowledge base, right? That's where we start, and because the generation of knowledge happens in academia, so certainly knowledge partners in terms of whether it's problem fixing, troubleshooting, and all that. That's at a very tactical level. R&D support, you want to improve your product, you want to improve your process, you want to improve your productivity, so you need kind of R&D support, you need some thoughts on that, or ideas on that. Commercialization of IP, if you feel that there's already an IP that has been generated, in some sense that is the same as knowledge. Mentorship that you want from, like what Professor Lohani offers to his company. There are a lot of examples, like even what Anuj was saying about Professor Shivakumar and Professor Pala and so on. Testing, of course, is another very important aspect. I think industry may not have or may not want to have the kind of facilities that it requires a lot of investment. It requires a lot of investment in terms of maintenance, sustaining, and so on. So I think academia is a very good place to kind of leverage their testing facilities, and not just purely from a mundane testing level, but also in terms of data interpretation, data analysis, value addition to just the testing part. That's a very important benefit that the industry gets. Or actually, I would say it's industry, academia. I think even the academia learn a lot from that data. Usually they may not have even thought of doing these experiments. So I think even equally academia also stands to benefit. And of course, the scaling part, I think many have already spoken. I think that's a very important aspect, which I think, you can look at Technopark as a kind of a maker's lab, kind of also, in terms of bridging this gap between, low TRLs and high TRLs. And I think knowledge, yeah. I think one aspect which I think I really liked, I'm just borrowing it from Anuj's presentation, is the branding aspect. And I think we have, and I've seen also many companies, apart from the points that I've already raised, I think the branding is a very, very strong motivation, to encourage both ways. I mean, it's not just about, the companies wanting to be seen associated with IIT Kanpur. It's equally, academia or IIT wanting to be seen with, say, Medetronix or, Laurus Labs and so on. So I think the branding works both ways, actually. The other aspect is also skill development, training, and so on. I think this is again a very, because you might say, although academia is all about education, it's about training, it's about, creating the future employees, creating the next, talent pipeline and so on. But I think everybody is aware and everybody understands that there is this gap, right? I mean, again, just like technology gap, TRL gaps, there is also an employability gap, right? And I think, and this is something which we have been discussing and trying to, but, I think we still have to work on this, because I still consider myself part of Technopark. So I take it upon myself that we have still a way to go on this in terms of, I think, specific, like a finishing school kind of a training or a very specific kind of training. And I think it will work well for both, even in terms of, again, like I said, for both academia and industry. I think this kind of training, I think even Professor Badwe also spoke about it in his talk. So I think these are from, I would say, sort of a tactical kind of aspects that I think Technopark can play a role in industry academia collaboration. The other slightly a larger picture, if you want to call, one more aspect is the the policy aspect, right? In terms of influencing policies, influencing, um, what I would say, even influencing direction, not purely in a policy matter, but also in terms of technology direction and so on. I think Technopark can play a role because they get to see the complete ecosystem, so that's another aspect that Technopark can play a role. But from a strategic perspective, what I think, this is something, I'm not sure whether you should allow it to happen organically or whether it's in terms of something kind of a push has to be done. I would say Technopark can act as a, it's well known that sector based clusters have shown enormous potential, whether it's Silicon Valley or the polymer science in near Akron, in Ohio and so on. So I think if Technopark can also provide, a sort of a sector specific cluster platform, wherein, I think that it's almost like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So you have all these cluster companies being together, and that the fact that they're all together itself generates a little higher output than each of them being separately in different places. And it also helps in building a more robust ecosystem, supply chain, and all that. So I think this sector specific cluster, this is at a probably at a larger strategic level, that thing. And I think these are some of the points I had in mind in terms of how Technopark could influence industry academia collaboration. Thank you once again for patiently listening to me.
Thank you, Professor Kamath. So we'll next go to Gaurav Pilania ji, and you have come from CII, and we would ask you a very specific question, that how Technoparks, in your view, can support MSMEs. Actually, is there a role for Technopark for supporting MSMEs, and how do you see what kind of support or what kind of role Technoparks can play for MSMEs? One of the questions that you were asking yourselves, that import substitution and aspects that you define. So what do you think, how Technopark can help? Your thoughts?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Professor Amren sir, Team Technopark, for having me here. It was a prestigious list of panelists amongst whom I was sitting. Very honorable for me. I'm Gaurav Pilania. I work for a company called Mars Mobility, Hans Energy. It's a group of companies that we're working in. And at the same time, I'm responsible for part of the leadership team of MSME wing of CII Uttar Pradesh. And 2-3 days back, when I got a call from ma'am that the Technopark inauguration is happening for the phase 1, it was a matter of pride, as well as I feel that as MSMEs, as industry, we have a fear, I would say, of approaching academia for getting any kind of development activity being done. And having IIT in Kanpur, having a Technopark here with a visionary leadership coming up with a bigger infrastructure, we would be the biggest losers if we cannot make best use of the facilities in the Technopark environment here. So a small presentation kind of highlighting how MSME specifically can take best advantages of being part of Technopark. So Kanpur, all of us know, has been Manchester of East, is a big industrial town, is one of the highest taxpayers other than NCR in state of Uttar Pradesh. There's a huge population base, different industries from textile to FMCG to defense to rail manufacturing. A lot of activities happening across the spectrum. So when we look at Technopark, generally, if you talk to an MSME, 99% MSMEs in Kanpur would not know about Technopark, and that's a responsibility which even the industry associations like CII should be more active in, and making it reach to the industry that this is Technopark, this is what it offers, and what benefits can be taken by the industry. Generally, there is certain, as I said, there's a fear that it's something more sci-fi, something more high-end technology, maybe not relevant to our small-scale industry, not relevant to what we are doing in a daily routine manufacturing. So talking of who all, which all industries? So in today's area, manufacturing and service, rather service is getting, having a bigger share of GDP than manufacturing. So both the sectors have equal opportunities in Technopark. To name the sectors as such, could be in the new age, it could be in the service sector, could be fintech, smart materials, medtech. We have a great example with us here already in the medtech, the deep technology which they're working on. And of course, in the media and entertainment, again, a part of the service industry model. In manufacturing, there are n number of companies within the vicinity of Kanpur Industrial Zone who are doing a lot of activities. In even a lot of large national companies have presence in Kanpur as a distribution manufacturing hub for this region. Defense is coming as a big sector in Uttar Pradesh. In fact, near Kanpur, there's a place called Sad, Maharajganj, almost 30 kilometers from the Kanpur airport, and they're coming with a huge defense corridor where Adani Defense has come with a huge facility. And once they're there, of course, a huge ancillary network would come. And in addition to that, already there are 5 DPSUs, 5 ordnance factories manufacturing within Kanpur. There is HAL in Kanpur. So already a lot of ecosystem for defense manufacturing is here. Textile manufacturing is happening. It was huge in the past, but still there at certain level in Kanpur. The services sectors, then of course the cross-cutting themes, IoT, AI, quantum science, all those things. There are a lot of activities happening within the industry in Kanpur, but at very isolated levels, wherein with participation at Technopark, it could be done in a more organized and constructive manner. Now the question comes, specific talking of MSMEs again, that when we talk of most of the presentations here, it's about Google's, Microsoft's, IBM's, there are hardly any, let's a good number of case studies where MSMEs have participated and, been actively involved with technoparks and taken something good with them. So maybe it's a time that there could be a vision where MSMEs at a cluster level or industry level could be invited here. We could play an active role as CII to ensure that we have good visits here from MSMEs. They understand the processes here. They, take out their fears of, what stops them from participating here and could be more actively engaged. So if we see what are the advantages which we could offer to the MSMEs, could of course primarily be starting from there's a state of art infrastructure within the IT fraternity, be it for testing, be it for prototyping, that could be utilized. Of course, then there is a huge collaboration opportunity in terms of great minds are here, in terms of scholars, in terms of professors whose guidance could be taken for development activities. And since Tech Park also offers a certain ecosystem where there are different companies or incubated companies who are working at global technology platforms. So when we are in that ecosystem, we tend to learn from them. We tend to get inspired from them. So even those opportunities could be taken use of. And then again, there is continuous pool of resource wherein there's a lot of historical data which is available, which could help in quick development of activities. And when should, let's say, MSMEs look at participating in the tech park? How do we create that need for them, or when do they realize they have a need to be here? One is, of course, when they need to improve any of their existing products. Could be in the material science. Let's say even they're manufacturing a textile. If they have to reduce the weight of their material, if they have to increase the strength of their material. So for all those reasons, they could participate here. If, let's say, the world is getting more globally competitive and they're facing challenges from technologically superior companies, then they need to be here. When we were discussing of design, so maybe a good design, a good design product in sense of good to look at, good to use at, could be a manufacturer's nightmare. It may not have the right manufacturing ergonomics. So there could be situations where to make the product more manufacturing friendly, ensuring that the design worthiness still remains as a user point of view, could be done at the Technopark facility. And of course, for operational excellence, that wherein how to optimize each step of the process could be also be looked at here. And just to enumerate, since morning, I'm sure that all the advantages have been discussed, but just to enumerate from the point of view of MSMEs, Of course, we have access to the top talent. The world-class testing facilities are available here. There's a dedicated R&D focus because as an MSME, if you have most of the R&D within your facility, you're kind of so busy with the operational challenges that the focus on R&D is missing. So if you create a separate setup which with a focus on R&D, then definitely it will give faster and better results than having it within your own premise. And of course, having the guidance from experienced professors, mentorship, and their expertise, networking opportunities with other companies who are part of the ecosystem here. Having experienced a facility called T Hub in Hyderabad, where let's say EV is coming as a good ecosystem. So somebody who's making SFPS charger can interact with somebody who's making a power pack. Somebody who's doing a power pack could actually interact with who's doing a two-wheeler EV. So once you're in this such a system, you get to be in that ecosystem. Access to financial resources also. So let's say when you're talking of good branding, for sure, IIT Kanpur, Technoparks give you branding. Then a lot of private equity investors, financial investors who are looking for ideas, looking for new products, looking for new good startups and companies, often scout at these prestigious institutions. And if you're at the right place, right time, even those funding support could be much easier being in the limelight rather than doing it in isolation at your own premise. Of course, in today's digital environment, you get to work in a way because when such a visionary technopark is being created, it helps you understand the digital infrastructure in a better manner, which you could implement here as well as to your own industry or your own premise. Professor Kamath sir was just mentioning about how we could influence or direct the policies, because let's say if any new BIS standard is coming or any new standard is coming in the country, for sure academic institutions have a role to play. And if you are a part of that game and if you are working on certain development, that will actually be leading towards those standards formulation. Scaling up expertise, as discussed, that a good design may not always be a good manufacturing design. So scaling up, having a right design with the right manufacturing ergonomics is very important, which could be done with the help of the Technopark expertise here. And taking inspiration from the likes of Medetronix, from Awasthi and such companies who are already established in the Technoparks could be an added advantage for the MSMEs. So just to end that, there's a brand Technopark at IIT Kanpur, and especially the industries in Kanpur, MSMEs of Kanpur should take advantage of this. There should be a dedicated effort to ensure that we have good knowledge sharing with the industries here, that a facility exists, they can utilize it, they not be too scared about the cost, with the timelines. Things are possible, things are, there is a certain I would say a more sensitive understanding in terms of the needs of MSMEs, in terms of the time scale of deliveries, on the cost involvement of these deliveries, and how they can be more actively participating in Technopark. And I'm sure if Technopark and MSMEs combined together, it could change the entire landscape of the infrastructure of industry in Kanpur. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you for having me here.
Okay, so I would request Dr. Nilesh Badwe now to say what he would think about what is it that will drive industries to Technopark. Is it our faculty, students, infrastructure, all of them? What is the?
So I think I'll probably stand up. Don't want to sit and face my back towards you. I think most of the points have been fairly comprehensively covered. What aspects are driving industry to technoparks in general, and even specifically about IIT Kanpur, right? What I feel is yes, Miss access to faculties, access to students, this talent pool in a single place, concentrated in a single place, right? And not just in one area. A lot of times what happens is some of the companies who are working on one particular problem, right, you may think that this can be one of the ways to solve it. You're looking for expertise in that area, and then you find some faculty who's working in that area. But as you progress in resolving that challenge, right, it turns out that that challenge is not just a single faceted, it is multifaceted. You need probably expertise not just from electrical engineering faculty, but you need expertise from material science, you need expertise from chemical, mechanical, and whatnot. Means all these different aspects have to come together. This is something that you are going to find in a university environment, rather than you hiring some engineer who has that one particular expertise in some area, right? So that's that's a very big advantage that you'll find. I know, for example, Awasthi ji, he is working on developing that electrochemical system. It's not just about electrochemistry. You need electrochemistry, you need to know electronics, you need to understand materials, you need to understand all these aspects, chemical. All of that has to come together to come up with a system like what he has developed. So that is one aspect that is going to be very helpful if you are setting up your centers at Technopark. Then another thing is talent development that we talked about, right? Just during lunchtime, Professor Amren Singh and I were talking with someone. One discussion that came up was, you know, for a place like Kanpur, there is going to be some level of resistance for people coming from outside. But then lot of companies today, they want to hire students who are graduating from IIT Kanpur just because of their uh, general level of talent or competitiveness that they bring to the table. Uh, if you want to hire these people, right, and if you already have a center that is established here, you'll see the students may already have, they may already know who you are because of your presence here on campus. So you get that branding not just outside IIT but even inside IIT towards a right talent pool. They can You can start hiring them as interns while they are right here. They can start working on certain projects in your facility where that can serve as a ramp up period. Because that this is something that I have seen even while working in industry, that this, whenever an RCG, recent college grad, new college grads are hired, the ramp up period is very critical. Industry want a person to start being productive pretty much by yesterday, not even today, but pretty much by yesterday, right? So this ramp up is something that is certainly going to help. If you have presence here, you can train students, they are aware of what you are doing. Those who are interested, you already know these students can perform well, they're interested in what you're doing. So rather than going and interviewing someone for probably half an hour or 1 hour, you already have seen them for much longer period, and they can join you starting from here, where they can work in your location in techno parks, and then can get absorbed later, right? And then so students, when they are working in your centers in technopark, right, they already know about all the facilities that are available on campus. So your collaboration can also work very seamlessly. If you are bringing some outside engineer versus you already have students who have graduated from IITs or whatever the parent institution, right, they can immediately bring the level of support or level of uh, productivity that maybe some engineer coming from outside may not be able to. So these are some of the probably extra points that I wanted to add besides what all has already been talked about.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I come now to our next panelist, Mr. Anuj Awasthi, and you had covered some of the uh, things in your presentation. And so, in order, I mean, I'm tempted to ask you something more uh, that I had not posed as a question to you because it has got covered here. But I saw something in your presentation, so that gives me a temptation. You see, in technoparks, when companies come, we say that they will interact with our faculty members for research, and so which means that there will be a new problems that they will come and bring it to the table every time if there is a research problem to be solved. But once you get going, then that no longer will remain a research problem further. I mean, you talked about Bangalore and IIT Kanpur. So something that is more engineered is done in Bangalore, and if it requires intervention And so if you have a facility here and you have started something, but in order to continue having a same level of interaction with IIT Kanpur ecosystem, okay, will it be that you have to have a set of your part of your job which will be focusing on 20% of your thing should be more on the innovation side while you are pilot, I mean, while you're going to the pilot scale for the next one, because you are doing something very similar that I see. Apart from whatever I have asked, if you have some thoughts on this, maybe you would like to add to this, because it is a continuing thing. We say that you should have a good collaboration with IIT Kanpur ecosystem. So if you have done to the pilot scale, then you don't have the same requirement for the same product actually. So how do you, and you have already set up your things actually. Yeah. So how do you see, even for your small example, there was something in it?
So perhaps, sir, as I told, like for a deep tech company who has developed some kind of technology, the company itself is built on top of some technology itself. It's not uh, some normal product which is just made once and it's being sold all around. If it's a deep tech product, research and development is not the option; it's a necessity. So for a company like us, we have developed some very hardcore electrochemical instrumentation, and we know it's the one instrument is not enough to solve the problems around. There are multiple versions around it. So we already have a say next 5 years plan, and that involves a lot of research and development. So we do not only companies short term and long term planning, but also companies research and development, short term planning and long term planning. And that's how we already have our some projects. Say one project is going on say for 6 months, another project is lined up that after this ends up. So that's how we find it very much important that the project this gives us a little bit freedom also, since we are having a research and development office in IIT Kanpur and our corporate office is in Bangalore. If we don't, so we don't mix it also. So sometimes when I'm here in IIT Kanpur, I'm meeting with professors, students, my mindset is totally into that, solving that crucial research problem. And when I'm in Bangalore, my mindset is totally towards the corporate activities. So this gives us a different kind of freedom itself.
So I think the floor is now open for discussion. If you have more questions, yeah, please go ahead. Okay.
I think he handed the mic to me because I spent 10 years in a CSIR lab. So, no, I think the key, I mean, I think it's a very good question. And you're right that CSIR, that's why they have this industrial research in their CSIR. It was meant to bridge the gap between, it was meant to be in that middle TRL level. But what I have, my personal experience has been, I used to be with National Aerospace Laboratories in Bangalore. The low TRLs is not there, or even if it is there, there is a with CSIR labs now I see there's a bit of an existential issue. Where are we? Because you can imagine that um, even to be within that middle TRL level, you need the low TRL base, right? You need a low TRL foundation to build upon it. So I remember at one point NAL used to compete with IISc in terms of the papers published, in terms of meaning very good fundamental work was being done. But then they were criticized for not doing their industrial research, right? So I don't know. I mean, I like they say, when I say it's a good question, I don't have the answer. So I've seen CSIR labs, sort of doing this pendulum thing between high TRLs, low TRLs, high TRLs, low, because where do we, at some point, if you're in this gap, they say, okay, how much technology transfer have you done? How many patents have you generated which have been commercialized, and so on. On the other hand, if people do too much of basic research, why are you part of CSIR lab? We are not a university. Why are you in publishing? But so I think they have a different kind of a issue there. So I think if I were to hazard an answer, which I think is not practical, but if I were to do it, we have to find some mechanism of bringing in CSIR labs also into, and I think I look at Technopark as some kind of a CSIR lab in between, meaning not a lab in that conventional sense. But it's a very good point. And in fact, even today, if you ask what are CSIR labs doing, and I think it's a very good point. So we need to maybe have this tripartite thing, academia, CSIR labs, and the industry, and that's probably the best way to synergize everything. So, but it's not. It's easier said than done. I agree.
To add? Yeah. I just wanted to tell you that in CSI, this is a government setup where you have industrial research, and you are right that CSIR mandate was to take academic research to industry. Actually, that's the gap that we are supposed to bridge actually. But as Professor Kamath has rightly pointed out, sometimes they have tried to become university and producing PhDs. I do not know whether that role was meant for them, and then vacillating. So you are doing high quality research and then going back there. But in a private sector, actually, we have some applied R&D centers, and how they interface with academia. I can give you some instance of that actually. So, like for example, there are two R&D centers that I know of. I was associated with one, Tata Research Development and Design Center, that was applied R&D, out and out applied R&D, in the sense that whenever we used to have a problem that industry has, and we used to go and tell our boss that I want to solve this problem, his first question was that has somebody done work in academia on that or not, and if not, then you are not going to touch that actually. So that's the first thing, that if there is a paper, if there is a publication, if there is a patent, then you can start working on that. You are not going to the first person to look at that actually. So that's the bottom line. Okay. And the second thing is that if you have an industrial problem of importance where industry is very much looking forward for that particular solution, and there is no bandwidth, or there is no knowledge with you, you go and collaborate. You have experts from academia brought into that particular thing, okay, so that they provide the expertise, and you are, while you are solving this problem actually. And with IIT Kanpur itself, we had Professor PC Kapoor and Professor Ahindra Ghosh. They were all consultants in that mode, while you are trying to solve a new problem where you don't have expertise, but you know how generally to solve the problem, but experts are there to help you out. So that's the mode in which the collaborations has worked in applied, and I think that that's the distinction that we have to make, that everything you cannot do, and applied R&D has its own science. That is not to be looked up down upon. That's a different class of problem, but then there is separate boundary that you have to draw somewhere. I thought that CSIR should have done probably the same way actually.
Just to add to his point, one of the things we did was, I think DST also has this imprint schemes and so on. So there are schemes where I myself had a project with NAL where they wanted. So we did the more theoretical academic work. They did the more applied kind of work. So that whatever I just said, collaboration is possible. There are schemes which encourage and incentivize those, and that's where I think academia and CSIR labs can come together and sort of work together to bring it to a higher level. It's possible.
Any other points in your questions? So I just wanted to, for Gauravji, I just wanted to clarify on certain things actually, what on MSME, certain expectations that you have put forth here, and because we have eminent panelists here, what we thought, and there was a big list of problems that you said about this, what we think about how MSMEs can pose, or this Technopark can be useful, is that we understand that MSMEs do not have functioning R&D of their own actually. Okay, so that's the number one premise. So, and that there are MSMEs who are trying to do two kind of things actually. One is that import substitution, which means that you are taking certain products from outside, and that particular thing can be made inside. The specifications are given, but because of your facility you are not meeting those specifications. So how to meet those specifications actually? Okay, the second one is that if I have a facility, I would like to compete in the world market. That means whatever product is being made outside, can I make a product which can sell with the cost competitiveness? It can sell in the outside market. So on those two parts, if we focus actually, and so Technopark is a facility, but Technopark does not have its own. I mean, to some extent, it can support, but it does not have its own economic model actually. So how to make that particular model? So in that respect, because you are going to take it back our presentation to CI, I would just like to add here that what we have in mind is that we have experts in IIT Kanpur, okay, in almost all domains. We can identify some of the areas. We have 7 verticals that Rima ji will share with you, that all 7 verticals around which we have compartmentalized our activities. Those are defense and space. Then we have healthcare, we have clean technology, deep technology, core engineering, and so on. We do not have much expertise in textile, must tell you, because Kanpur has the textile, and you mentioned so many. And so we do not have so much on leather technology also. But others, like, I mean, you talked about defense, you talked about core manufacturing and so on, casting, automobile, EVs, all those things. So one can have a consortium built around industry specific things, and we can have, so short-term support that Technopark can provide is, I mean, that's the thing that we are discussing internally, is that we can have summer interns, okay, working on low-hanging fruits. Okay, low-hanging fruits means there are things that can be solved with some small intervention with faculty members as partner. Okay, so like, I mean, pull together some small resources from MSMEs, okay, that can support 3 months of summer internship and some honorarium for faculty members to solve some of the low hanging fruits for the MSME. That is one. Second is that governments have got certain schemes for MSMEs actually, okay, that we hear that MSMEs can be supported. So in that respect, if something that requires deeper research, I would say that then together with Technopark, you can write a proposal for which requires bigger intervention, like making a facility, etc., common facility that can be created in Technopark. We can take it forward. So you will be as a MSME partner, and then we can go to government agency asking for a fund for setting up of a facility that can be utilized by all MSMEs put together, that can be hosted in a place like Technopark. So that's the kind of thing with a workable model. Otherwise, there is some confusion that I wanted to just upfront. Yes.
So I take that. So I definitely take back that to me, sir. And just to add here, maybe in discussion with Mithil ma'am, I could plan 30, 40 MSMEs to visit here, have a round, have a discussion with you and the designated faculties here to have a better understanding of how what can be done best. And talking of the MSME definition also has been quite enlarged by the government in the last 2-3 years. So when I say MSME, anybody less than top line of 250 is designated MSME. So it's not that there would always be a dearth of funds for R&D. There would be funds, but as I said, the awareness is lacking, or there is a fear that how to best utilize that fund. So maybe with a more detailed interaction, we could take it up. And as I mentioned in my presentation, the takeaways are many. I mean, we can definitely do it. Thank you, sir.
Just to add one small thing, what you are saying regarding engaging MSME with Technopark over here, there are very good models like the IDEX model from Ministry of Defense, and what they do, they come up with a challenge edge. Okay, of course the model can be little different, but the problems which the MSMEs are facing are the low-hanging fruits. If those problems can be put together and those problems are shared, and at the same time the MSME is confident that it can support financially the development aspects in that, So those things can be shared with the community in IIT Kanpur. And because in IIT Kanpur we have experts in all the areas, but at the same time not in all the areas also. So once we have that list of the problems and we identify, okay, this is a problem which I can solve, or the other faculty members can solve, then the interaction between MSME and the faculty member can be more fruitful. Yeah. Yeah. Many such things are.
So I think we should close it because we have a talk. Some Professor Karandikar is giving some talk in HPC symposium. So some of us would like to hear that talk. So thank you very much for participating in this symposium. So I think Priyashi, you would like to, yeah. So I think we have some pleasant duty to perform.